George W. Bush is commonly referred to as one of the worst presidents ever, but what makes him so bad? Our parents often speak as if his name leaves a horrible taste in their mouth. In this episode, we'll discuss why Bush's policies and two wars are huge stains on the 43rd president's resume. Before we delve into the atrocities that came to fruition during the Bush administration's time in office, we'll shed a positive light on one of the greatest humanitarians of the 21st century. Bush's humanitarian work in Africa is almost never spoken of because of other events that took place during his presidency. George Bush helped launch PEPFAR in 2003, which provided AIDS research and prevention tactics in Africa. According to Vox, it is the single largest global health initiative targeting a single disease in history. While helping save over 5 million lives from the devastating AIDS disease, Bush also helped target cancer and malaria. According to TopTens.net, malaria deaths have dropped by 50% since 2000. While Bush might have been the greatest United States president in the minds of many Africans, people stateside have something else entirely to say. The dispute over George Bush started with the legitimacy of his presidency. For only the fourth time in our 56 presidential elections, the candidate who lost the popular vote became president. The election became even more disputable when the Bush camp called for a recount in the state of Florida, where his brother happened to be governor. After the recount, it was announced that George W. Bush was the winner of the presidential election, until Al Gore's campaign sued anyone and everyone involved in the recount process. Ultimately, the Supreme Court had to intervene and overrule Florida's Supreme Court order to recount a second time, leading to the very confusing election of President Bush. So it's 2001, and many people are still wondering how this former governor from Texas even became the president when the 9/11 attacks happened. The greatest terrorist attack on American soil did not come without its fair share of criticism. Many critics state that there are warning signs that were possibly ignored. According to the London Times, on July 16, 2001, British intelligence passed a message to the U.S. that al-Qaeda was in the final stages of preparing a terrorist attack in Western countries. While people are questioning whether or not America should have been prepared for such an attack, others disputed whether the president himself had any involvement with such an attack. Bush followed 9/11 by launching what he called a war on terror. He proclaimed that Iraq, Iran, and North Korea were
an axis of evil.
So in 2003, America launched a military conquest of Iraq on the basis that they were harboring terrorists and had weapons of mass destruction.
Some of these regimes have been pretty quiet since September the 11th, but we know their true nature.
The legitimacy of this war is heavily disputed, as is the legality of the information gained in the condition this information was extracted during the war on terror. Human rights organizations have been extremely critical of Rumsfeld and other Bush administrators. Couple the war on Iraq with George Bush's failure to respond swiftly or adequately to Hurricane Katrina, alongside his dispute over whether or not global warming exists, and that left his second-term approval rating tied for the second lowest of all time, only behind Harry Truman and Richard Nixon at 39.5%. George W. Bush's presidency has been turned into full-length documentaries that discuss the intricate up and down seen during his 8 years of leadership, while we have barely scratched the surface.
Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we.
If you'd like to learn more, as always, full citations and further readings will be linked in the description. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next Tuesday to discuss the 2008 housing market crisis.